You've heard the names: Washington, Jefferson, Madison, Franklin, the Founding Fathers, the architects of America. But what if I told you the real architect of the United States never set foot in America? He never fought a revolution. He never signed a declaration. And yet, his words, his ideas, are woven into the very foundation of the nation. His name is John Locke. And whether you realize it or not, every freedom you enjoy, every right you defend, and every law you live under can be traced back to him. Not because he created the United States, but because he created the philosophy that made it possible. This isn't just history. This is the intellectual blueprint that shaped an entire system of government. And if you want to understand how America works, or how it's supposed to work, you need to understand Locke. Because once you do, something changes. You stop seeing politics as chaos. You stop seeing freedom as a given. And you start to see the design behind the system. A design that was both visionary and dangerous. So today, we're going to uncover exactly how John Locke built the political system of America. Not with weapons, not with votes, but with ideas. And if you stay with me to the end, you might never look at this country the same way again. John Locke's political philosophy doesn't begin with government. It begins with the individual. And more precisely, with what he believed every human being possessed from the moment of birth: natural rights. These weren't permissions granted by a monarch or a parliament. They were not favors handed out by those in power. To Locke, they were inborn, sacred, and universal. He identified three core rights: life, liberty, and property. These weren't chosen at random. Life was the right to exist and be secure. Liberty was the right to act freely, so long as you didn't harm others. And property, often misunderstood, wasn't just about land or wealth. It was the right to the fruits of your labor, your body, your ideas, and your freedom to build a life. Here's where Locke flipped the old world order. If these rights are natural, then no government has the authority to violate them. Not a king, not a president, not a court. This means that governments exist because of these rights, not the other way around. And if a government breaks this contract, if it abuses, ignores, or tramples these rights, Locke says the people have the right to overthrow it. That idea was explosive in the 1600s. It threatened monarchies, challenged empires, and lit the fuse for revolutions. But in America, it became the foundation of a new experiment in human freedom. When Thomas Jefferson wrote Life, Liberty, and the Pursuit of Happiness, he wasn't just quoting poetry. He was translating Locke's philosophy into America's DNA. And today, whenever someone shouts about their rights, online, in court, in protest, they're echoing a voice from centuries ago, a voice that still whispers through the American system. You were born free. You were born equal. And no one has the right to take that from you. That's Locke's core. And everything else he built starts from there. To understand Locke's idea of government, we first have to understand a world without it. Locke called this the state of nature, a condition where people live free, equal, and independent, governed only by natural law and reason. In this state, no kings, no parliaments, no police, only individuals trying to live, work, and coexist. It wasn't total chaos. Locke wasn't Hobbes. He didn't believe people were animals needing control. He believed they were reasonable. But still, problems arose. Because when everyone is their own judge and executioner, justice becomes personal. If someone violates your rights, who punishes them? Who stops them? Without structure, even reasonable people can fall into conflict. And so, Locke proposed a solution: the social contract. People come together and voluntarily give up certain freedoms in exchange for protection of their most important rights. They create a government, not to control them, but to serve them, to protect life, liberty, and property with neutral laws and a stable system. But here's the catch. This government is a trustee, not a master. Its only job is to uphold the contract. And if it betrays that trust, then the contract is broken, and the people have the right to resist. Locke wasn't just describing theory. He was giving future generations a framework to build and rebuild society. And in 1776, that idea crossed an ocean and changed the world. What gives a government the right to rule? For centuries, the answer was divine power. Kings claimed they were chosen by God. Others ruled by conquest, by bloodline, or by force. But Locke shattered that worldview with a single radical idea. Legitimate power comes only from the consent of the governed. In other words, a government has no authority unless the people agree to it, not fear it, not obey it, not worship it, but consent to it. This flipped the entire pyramid of power upside down. The people are not beneath the government. The government is beneath the people. And this wasn't just about voting or elections. Consent to Locke meant constant accountability. If leaders break the contract, if they abuse their power or neglect their duty, then they lose the right to lead. Think about how revolutionary this was in the 1600s, and think about how deeply it shaped the American Revolution a century later. Jefferson didn't invent the phrase, consent of the governed. He borrowed it, straight from Locke. And today, this idea still pulses in every democratic institution, every vote, every protest, every constitutional challenge. It's a reminder that power is not inherited. It's loaned by the people, for the people. And when that power no longer serves the public good, Locke made one thing very clear: the people have the right to take it back. Once power is handed to a government, what stops it from growing too large, from becoming the very tyranny it was meant to prevent? For John Locke, the answer was clear: limit it, strictly. He believed that government should have only the powers the people grant it, no more, no less. Anything beyond that is theft. It's a breach of trust. It's tyranny in disguise. Locke argued that rulers aren't above the law, they're bound by it, and the purpose of law isn't to control the people, it's to control the rulers. This idea shaped one of the most important features of the American political system: checks and balances. The founders feared concentrated power, and Locke gave them the philosophy to fight it. So they created a structure where power is divided: executive, legislative, judicial, each one limited by the others, each one accountable to the people. It's not just about law, it's about design. Locke knew that power is seductive. Without boundaries, even good leaders can become dangerous. That's why he said the best government is one that does the least it must, and nothing more. Its role isn't to shape your life, it's to protect your ability to shape your own. Today, debates about overreach, executive orders, and constitutional limits all trace back to this principle. The government serves the people, not the other way around. And every time we forget that, we drift a little further from Locke's original blueprint. In an era when religion and politics were inseparable, when kings ruled by the grace of God and heresy was punishable by death, John Locke stood apart. He dared to say something dangerous: faith is personal. Government should stay out of it. For Locke, the soul could not be governed by laws. No one, not a monarch, not a priest, not even a majority, had the right to dictate belief. That power belongs only to the individual. To force religion is not to create faith, it's to create hypocrisy. His letter concerning toleration became a landmark in the defense of religious liberty. He argued for peaceful coexistence of different beliefs and made a crucial distinction. The church saves souls, but the state protects rights. Confuse the two, and you get persecution. The founding fathers of the United States were listening. When they wrote the First Amendment, Locke's voice echoed in every line. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. That's not just legal language. That's Locke's shield, designed to protect belief from power. And today, the fight continues. Whether it's school prayer, religious exemptions, or the role of faith in politics, Locke's principle still draws the line. It reminds us, the freedom to believe, or not believe, is a cornerstone of a free society, and that freedom must never belong to the government. Most philosophers stopped at obedience, but Locke, he went further. He told the people, if your government violates your rights, you don't just have the right to protest, you have the right to revolt. This wasn't just theory. It was a roadmap for political transformation. According to Locke, government is a contract, a mutual agreement between the rulers and the ruled. If that contract is broken, if power is abused, rights are trampled, and the system becomes corrupt, then the people are no longer bound to obey. They are justified in resistance, even in revolution. Think about that. In the 1600s, this was explosive. Locke wasn't whispering reform, he was shouting freedom. And in 1776, America heard that shout. The Declaration of Independence echoes Locke's logic almost word for word. When a long train of abuses leads to tyranny, it says, "It is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government." That's Locke. That's the voice of rebellion, not for chaos, but for restoration. Today, this principle still stirs deep questions. At what point does resistance become duty? How much overreach is too much? Locke didn't provide easy answers, but he gave us the standard. And he reminded us, government exists for the people, not the other way around. To John Locke, property wasn't just land or money, it was the physical extension of your freedom. He believed that when you mix your labor with the natural world, whether farming, building, or creating, you create something that is rightfully yours, not because the king said so, not because a paper title says so, but because you made it. For Locke, property rights were natural rights, just like life and liberty. Take away a person's property, and you take away their independence, their ability to provide, survive, and thrive. This idea wasn't just about economics, it was about power, because when people control their own property, they aren't dependent on rulers. They aren't at the mercy of elites or bureaucrats. They are free. It's no surprise that America, inspired by Locke, built its system on strong protections of private property. From the Constitution's takings clause to the idea of free enterprise, Locke's influence is everywhere. But his vision was also moral. He warned that massive inequality, when created through force or fraud, corrupts freedom. Property should come from labor, not exploitation. Today, debates over taxation, land rights, wealth inequality, and capitalism itself all trace back to Locke's bold idea. True liberty is impossible without economic autonomy. And in a world where economic power increasingly shapes political power, his warning is more relevant than ever. Long before human rights became a global ideal, John Locke was already saying something revolutionary. You are not born to serve a king. You are born to think, to choose, to live for yourself. This wasn't arrogance, it was dignity. Locke believed that each person is a rational being, capable of moral judgment, capable of self-rule. And because of that, each person has inherent worth that no government can take away. He wrote that individuals have rights not because a ruler grants them, but because they are human, born equal, born free, born sovereign. This idea shattered the old world of empires and divine authority. It became the cornerstone of the American dream. The right to pursue happiness? That's Locke. The belief that no one, not even the majority, has the right to crush your conscience? That's Locke. Today, as identity becomes politicized, as group power sometimes overrides personal freedom, his philosophy raises hard questions. Are we protecting the individual, or are we sacrificing them to political tribes? Locke reminds us, society is made of individuals, not the other way around. And any system that forgets that risks becoming the very oppression it was built to resist. What gives a government the right to rule? For kings, it was divine will. For tyrants, it was force. But for Locke, it was something far more powerful and more fragile, the consent of the governed. He believed no authority is legitimate unless the people accept it, not through fear, not through silence, but through active agreement. This idea was radical. It meant that the people weren't subjects, they were partners. And if that partnership broke down, through abuse, corruption, or betrayal, the people had the right to withdraw their consent. That's why elections matter. That's why laws must reflect the will of the people. And that's why government can never be above those it serves. But Locke also warned, consent must be real. It can't come from lies, manipulation, or coercion. If citizens are misled, silenced, or forced into compliance, then the system becomes a shadow of democracy. In the United States today, with polarization, distrust, and challenges to electoral integrity, Locke's words echo like a warning. Democracy dies when consent is taken for granted. It must be earned, every day, And that starts with truth, transparency, and trust in the people themselves. Centuries after his death, John Locke's fingerprints are still all over the United States. Every courtroom that upholds due process, every protest that demands justice, every citizen who speaks truth to power, is echoing Locke. But his legacy isn't just in history books. It lives in the ongoing questions we ask as a nation. Are we still honoring natural rights? Is our government still accountable to the people? Are we still a country built on consent or convenience? Locke warned that liberty, once lost, is rarely regained, and that even free nations can become tyrannical if they forget their foundations. His philosophy wasn't meant to be frozen in time. It was meant to be a compass, pointing us back to the core principles of freedom, responsibility, and truth. Today, America faces division, disillusionment, and disruption. But Locke's ideas remain a toolkit for rebuilding trust and restoring balance. Because in the end, his message was simple and timeless. The power belongs to the people, and freedom is not a gift, it's a duty. Now that you've seen how John Locke's ideas still shape the soul of America, from the Constitution to your personal rights, what do you think? Are we still following his vision, or have we lost our way? This channel exists to explore questions that matter to you, to us, and to the future of this country. So if these ideas stirred something in you, if you believe that philosophy isn't just old theory but a guide to today's choices, then join us. Subscribe for more videos that challenge power, inspire freedom, and connect the past to the present. Leave a comment. Do you believe America is still living Locke's truth, or has it become something he would no longer recognize? And like this video if it helped you see things in a new light. Together, let's build a space where thought becomes action, where history becomes a conversation, and where you have a voice. Because Locke's revolution didn't end in 1776. It's just beginning.